A very good morning, 9 a.m. in LA, in Napa. Ben Devine joined us. Ben, how are you?
I'm very well. Aloha to you, sir.
Aloha, indeed. We're going to chat about the airfield, Dillingham Airfield, over in Hawaii in a few moments. But tell me a bit, tell everybody who you are, Ben, and what your story is.
So my name is Ben Devine. I'm one of the organizers for the Save Dillingham Association. I'm actually the executive director of that. And we're a group of people that have bound together to try and preserve civil access at Dillingham Airfield on the North Shore of Oahu. The way I got involved in that is I am a parachute rigger, a person that packs the auxiliary parachute systems for a variety of different applications in aviation. As a result of that, I am one of the few people that kind of has had a touching point with every single business on the airfield because everybody uses auxiliary parachutes in one form or another. And so when the troubles kind of came about, it kind of made sense because I had contact with everybody that was there on the airfield.
There's hang gliding, there's flight school, there's parachuting, of course, gliding as well. A lot of aviation going on there.
All the different kinds of aviation you can do at Dillingham. It's probably the only place in Hawaii that exists.
And is there two parachute schools side by side?
There is enough demand in Hawaii to sustain two of the busiest drop zones in the world. Yeah.
So what's going on? Why is the closure potentially lease? Is the lease up in February? Is that the problem?
So what the case is that in 2019, the Hawaii Department of Transportation signed a 5-year lease that would finish in 2024. However, in February of this year, so February of 2020, they issued notices to all of the businesses on the airfield saying they are exercising a clause in the lease that allows them to terminate the lease early. And so in February, we got notices that as of June 30th of this year, we were all going to be evicted from the airfield. Now, through some political liaisons and our state representatives and our state senators, we were able to get an extension granting us until June of 2021.
And 130 people relying on this airfield, 130 people working there. Why on earth would they want to take it all away? What are their plans? What's behind it?
So the three main reasons that the DOT is cited for wanting to terminate their lease is, first of all, they cite $1 million shortfall in Dillingham's annual budget, meaning they spend $1 million on the airport a year. But that's really not a credible reason to shut the airfield. It's just like saying, the highways and streets that we use to conduct commerce, those just cost money to the state every year. And the airport is nothing but a highway to the sky. There's almost $13 million in revenue annually that's generated by Dillingham Airfield. And the problem is that money, that those funds and that are generated there are then collected through income taxes and other economic activity that then gets distributed into the state economy as opposed to a straight dotted line to the DOT's balance sheet. They do collect rents, they do collect landing fees. That does make up hundreds of thousands of dollars of that shortfall. But they are claiming that not being able to draw a direct line to their income stream is reason to shut it down, which just is not the case. 11 of the 15 airports in Hawaii lose money. Dillingham is just one amongst them, but just like libraries are an important community resource, roads are needed to conduct commerce, so we need the airfield. Their second complaint is that they don't own the land. And so the United States Army owns the land, and the state leases that land for $1. And that lease, the reason that works out for everybody is that the military doesn't have to pay for the annual maintenance and upkeep of the facility while still providing civil access. And the state gets the land for free and opportunity to use the airport, you know, in conjunction with the military in a joint use agreement. The military is interested in continuing that situation. They would love to have civil access be there, and they'd love to have an airport where, you know, the FAA and the state are the ones that pay for repaving of the runway and everything. So then the third complaint that they have is an inability to get a long-term lease. So part of that joint use agreement is that they can't get a lease for greater than 20 years, which is pretty important part of doing airport improvements. So if you're wanted to, say, build a hangar, you don't want to build a hangar if you can only have 5-year guarantee on keeping that. And so as a result, we've had our political representatives and senators step up to the plate, and they are doing their best to help negotiate a long-term lease. So I think that if we can work to remove all the complaints, that's one of the paths forward that would allow the DOT to maintain their lease.
How long have you been there, Ben? How long have you been part of this operation?
I've been out in Hawaii about 4 years, and I'm never leaving.
You must be heavily connected to the community, the whole community of aviation there.
Absolutely. I mean, the North Shore is a very tight community. The North Shore of Oahu is just a special place. There is nowhere else like it in the world, and that is, you know, an easy statement to make for anybody that's visited Hawaii. You come to this particular spot, and it's just magical. And it's a very small, tight-knit community. You mentioned that there's 130 jobs on the airport. The nearest town, Haleiwa, the population there is just about 20,000 people. And so of the 130 jobs that are at Dillingham Airfield, each one of those jobs, they're good jobs. So they're mostly the primary breadwinners for their homes. So you got to picture those 130 jobs being somewhere in the realms of 400 to 600 people in the community. And if you're getting west of Haleiwa, so Haleiwa is this little town on the North Shore, and then the coast stretches out. If you get west of Haleiwa, there's almost no other employment out there. So all the homes, the schools, everything that exists in that community is going to be very, very strongly affected by the closure of the airfield.
It would be a disaster. It would just decimate the whole community, wouldn't it?
It absolutely would. And I mean, these are also, these jobs are local businesses and local, employers. And so that money doesn't really leave the North Shore. It's not like it goes into the coffers of, you know, a large scale company of some kind that's based in a foreign land. They're based right there on the North Shore. So this money just kind of goes into the bars, the shops, the restaurants, the dentist offices, all the businesses that are there. That money then gets respent by the people that work at those businesses. And it's just an important part of the economic cycle that exists.
So if they went ahead and closed down the operation totally, what would the place be like 2 years from now? What would the community be like 2 years from now?
I mean, the scary part is, like, you just don't know. It has been a pretty consistent pattern that the U.S. military, when they take full ownership of airfields in Hawaii over the last 30 years, that, you know, it just doesn't make economic sense for them to maintain that airfield for their sole use when they already have a couple big airfields on Oahu. And so I would expect, if I was to guess, I would expect that they're going to close Dillingham completely within a matter of years. They don't use the activity there enough to justify its use without civilian access. Now, the military does have the power to do whatever they want, so they could go the other route, and they could base a whole squadron of aircraft out there. They could do large-scale construction, and they're not subject to any of the environmental restrictions and inspections that you would expect for any other civil development. So it's basically out of the hands of the community. And, you know, you'll see everything fall in that area economically, from from rents. A lot of the important renters and homeowners in the area are people that work at Dillingham, all the way to, closing of a couple bars and restaurants and shops in the area that people frequent consistently. And once we close the airfield for the day, it's going to have an economic depression while causing uncertainty for the community.
It sounds like madness. What can be done? You've contacted the political side of it. You're working on that. The USPA have been doing their thing on Facebook. What else can people do then?
So right now we're headed into Hawaii's legislative session. It starts here in January, and the primary reason why we asked for that original year-long extension was because we wanted a chance to get into the Hawaii State Legislature's session to submit laws. So we are going to be submitting bills, and the legislative process is complicated, but I think we have great promise to get these bills through. How people can help is they can go to savedillinghamairfield.com, and right there on the site we have a set of form letters. So, there's a button indicating if you're an aviation enthusiast, a skydiver, just an interested citizen. You click one of those buttons and up will pop a form letter. You can add to it if you like, but really just making sure that the legislators that we're going to be approaching to pass these bills are aware how many people are concerned about the future of the airfield. If they'd like additional information on what's going on at Dillingham, we have a press section there. You can also just do a little Google search for Dillingham Airfield and it'll pop up. The other thing that can happen is, it is a legal defense fund. So the act of passing legislation is not a cheap thing. So if you wanted to spare a few holiday dollars, we'll definitely take that in, and the money goes straight to legal fees. It's definitely going to be ongoing fundraising campaigns throughout the year to see if we can lobby for this legislation to pass. The third thing you can do is feel free to look up your local congressional representative or senator for your state. Because at the federal level, we are interacting with the U.S. military to try and get that long-term lease exception. And that is going to happen because there is federal level pressure on the military.
Well, that's good stuff, and it's great information there, Ben. We're going to get this out to everybody. Hopefully we can stop this from happening and make sure you can all keep working there. On a personal note, where did you come from? Did you start in skydiving? Now you're a rigger, of course. Did you start parachuting?
Absolutely, yeah. I have. I've been skydiving since 2009. It's funny, and the USPA is our the United States Parachute Association is our industry group, and they have a little section of their monthly mailer that goes out, and it is how skydiving changed your life. And ever since the first time I got that blast of wind on my face as we exited the plane, my life has been changed. I can't tell you how magical and special this particular airport is, that I live a stone's throw from the beach. I wake up in the morning and I walk over to the airfield, test the conditions over the walk, and next thing you know, I'm on a plane climbing to altitude where you can see the shoreline break all across the North Shore, the mountains climbing on the other side of you to Mauna Kea Peak, and just the beauty and wonder that is there at Dillingham is something that's special in my heart, and I think to anybody that comes out and visits to see it, it'll take your breath away. Did
you start there then? Did you start jumping there on Hawaii?
No, I started jumping in Davis, California at Skydance Skydiving. Highly recommend that drop zone to anybody that's in the Northern California area.
Was it Ray Farrell, the owner there, when you started?
Absolutely, and Ray Farrell was my mentor in the parachute rigging.
Yeah, I jumped there. I was there for a long weekend, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. One of the biggest surprises was hearing gunshots under canopy.
Yeah, there is a shooting range just north of the landing area there, so it's important to get your spot right.
As a Brit, it was quite unusual. You know, we're not really used to people firing guns, and so to hear it on the canopy, it was quite a shock.
Definitely. No, I growing up on there at that airport there, I don't even hear it anymore, right? But so often I'll be there and people will be like, is there a small war going on over there? No, it's just the firing range, and it happens to be the industry day for law enforcement. So that's why.
Are you still jumping now, Ben? Do you still jump?
Oh yeah, I skydive most days. I'm a little bit pickier than most people, where I wait for the absolute perfect fair weather days. But it being Hawaii, there's more than enough of those.
Yeah, it can get a little bit windy sometimes, can it?
We definitely, one of the features of the drop zone is that we have the trade winds there. And so the trade winds are steady and strong. They come off the Pacific, same direction all year. But as a result, we do start up the airplane at 7 a.m. in the morning. So especially at this time of year, you can get a dawn load in almost every single day. Always first thing in the morning, there's not a breath of wind. And then typically around 3-4 o'clock, it's picked up quite a lot. And so you definitely should be a more experienced skydiver to jump in those conditions.
And how's it been this year with COVID? Has it affected you guys there, or have you got away with it quite nicely?
Coronavirus has had a dramatic impact on everybody in the industry, and definitely in Hawaii specifically, we have had some of the we've had some of the most severe restrictions on travel and tourism, and the Hawaii economy specifically kind of relies on travel and tourism for a lot of their general revenue, as opposed to, you have lots of drop zones that are here on the mainland and they are near to a large city, and that domestic population of that city is what drives the business of the drop zone. In Hawaii, the entire state of Hawaii's population is 2 million people. Oahu has about half of that population, so you're looking at about 800,000 people on Oahu, and that population base is not quite enough of a draw for the industry specifically. So short answer is, COVID has had a very strong negative impact on businesses out in the airfield. That being said, there has been restructuring, inventiveness. We're doing a lot more AFF, just because a lot of people don't have a lot of other stuff to do because of coronavirus, and so they've decided to come out and do an outdoor sport. I don't think you can get any more outdoors of an outdoor sport than skydiving. It's definitely a sanitary conditions when you apply 200 miles an hour wind. Yeah. So all those things about eating outside at a restaurant being safer, this is that times 1,000. And we've instituted quite a number of precautionary measures and protocols. I think that skydiving actually, and aviation generally, is better suited for instituting protocols because we already are used to using checklists and having safety equipment and wearing specific things. When it came to adapting to wearing masks, that was just another item in the checklist, as opposed to other businesses where they're starting from nothing. Contact tracing, we gather contact information for every single person that comes on site forever. All drop zones have done that, as opposed to my local restaurant when they started to collect contact information on every person. That was a new thing for them. So I think we've done a good job of being inventive and adapting to the challenges that the pandemic has presented. But it's definitely been a challenge.
Well, Ben, I wish you all the best of success with the new year and with your fight in the courts, and we'll see what can happen and get everybody watching Air Sports News to do their bit to support the airfield as well. Thanks very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Regan. Aloha and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.